Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I am seeing myself, well, I'm seeing green. Yeah, I'm seeing green, so let me check my sound while that comes up. Good, I'm seeing myself in my peripheral, moving and shaking. So I'm going to take that as if I am active and also moving and shaking. Let me check my sound since I'm going to have to play back. Yeah, playback is good. Good. The world is good. I'm seeing myself moving and shaking. That looks good. Slightly a little weird. There we are. That's better. Perfect. Hope everyone is doing okay on this Friday morning. It is 11:38 a.m. on a Friday in Richmond, Virginia. So for announcements. So next week, or week after next, I think I may be getting Tim Canova next week, if not week after next. But Jordan Chardon has said he's going to be on the show week after next, so that should be awesome. I mean, I actually may see if I can get him next week if he's free, since if Tim Canova can't do it. Well, whatever. Tim Canova and Jordan Chardon is going to be on the show at some point coming up in the near future. Also, I want to thank everyone who helps support the show. I try to make a habit of that because it's true that if I don't have an audience, I don't have a show. Anybody can do a show in some far off corner of the wilderness in a basement and the internet by themselves irrelevant. No, you guys help make the show. So thank you very much. Whether you like the show or whether you contribute, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, context. I like to talk about context. I like to talk about context because I think context matters. Something happened, some event, some big splashy event. Oh my God, something took place. I usually just eat my Cheerios. I usually just go to work. I don't like Bob. Bob gets on my nerves. We bump heads a little bit. I come home, have sex with my wife or my girlfriend. This person may be having an extramarital affair. Whatever. It's mundane. It's extraordinarily and extremely mundane. How do I place this big flashy event that's taking place within the mundanity, if that's the word, of my current affairs? How? Without a larger context of things, it is difficult to place things that take place on an international and even a national stage. That's why I like to focus on context, because otherwise I don't know how to understand the thing that takes place. This thing out there that took place, there's some flat fact associated with the thing that takes place. There's several flat facts that are associated with the thing that takes place. But how do I take those little individual, distinct flat facts, those things that have taken place? How do I place that into the larger scheme of things? And when I try to make decisions, make judgments, take dispositions on it, what am I using? What context do I put those flat facts in? What larger context? What larger awareness of things? Because the fact is, that's going to guide my decisions. That's going to guide what I think. That's going to guide the disposition that I take. Do you remember this? Let's go back in time. I like going back in time because I think the historical context is some of the best context today. Look at this. Do you remember this?
My fellow Americans, I have spoken to you from this historic office on many occasions and about many things. The power of the presidency is often thought to reside within this Oval Office. Yet it doesn't rest here. It rests in you, the American people, and in your trust. Your trust is what gives a president his powers of leadership and his personal strength. And it's what I want to talk to you about this evening. For the past 3 months, I've been silent on the revelations about Iran. And you must have been thinking, well, why doesn't he tell us what's happening? Why doesn't he just speak to us as he has in the past when we've faced troubles or tragedies? Others of you, I guess, were thinking, what's he doing hiding out in the White House? Well, the reason I haven't spoken to you before now is this. You deserve the truth. And as frustrating as the waiting has been, I felt it was improper to come to you with sketchy reports or possibly even erroneous statements, which would then have to be corrected, creating even more doubt and confusion. There's been enough of that. I paid a price for my silence in terms of your trust and confidence, but I've had to wait, as you have, for the complete story. That's why I appointed Ambassador David Abshire as my special counselor to help get out the thousands of documents to the various investigations. And I appointed a special review board, the Tower Board, which took on the chore of pulling the truth together for me and getting to the bottom of things. It has now issued its findings. I'm often accused of being an optimist, and it's true. I had to hunt pretty hard to find any good news in the board's report. As you know, it's well stocked with criticisms, which I'll discuss in a moment, but I was very relieved to read this sentence. The board is convinced that the president does indeed want the full story to be told. And that will continue to be my pledge to you as the other investigations go forward. I want to thank the members of the panel, former Senator John Tower, former Secretary of State Edmund Muskie, and former National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft. They have done the nation, as well as me personally, a great service by submitting a report of such integrity and depth. They have my genuine and enduring gratitude. I've studied the board's report. Its findings are honest, convincing, and highly critical, and I accept them. And tonight, I want to share with you my thoughts on these findings and report to you on the actions I'm taking to implement the board's recommendations. First, let me say I take full responsibility for my own actions and for those of my administration. As angry as I may be about activities undertaken without my knowledge, I am still accountable for those activities. As disappointed as I may be in some who served me, I am still the one who must answer to the American people for this behavior. And as personally distasteful as I find secret bank accounts and diverted funds, well, as the Navy would say, this happened on my watch. Let's start with the part that is the most controversial. A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not. As the Tower Board reported, what began as a strategic opening to Iran deteriorated in its implementation into trading arms for hostages. This runs counter to my own beliefs, to administration policy, and to the original strategy we had in mind. There are reasons why it happened, but no excuses. It was a mistake. I undertook the original Iran initiative in order to develop relations with those who might assume leadership in a post-Khomeini government. It's clear from the board's report, however, that I let my personal concern for the hostages spill over into the geopolitical strategy of reaching out to Iran. I asked so many questions about the hostages' welfare that I didn't ask enough about the specifics of the total Iran plan. Let me say to the hostage families, we have not given up. We never will. And I promise you we'll use every legitimate means to free your loved ones from captivity.
This was Reagan's speech on the Iran-Contra affair. Now, the Iran-Contra affair was the president of the United States. That portion of it, I guess, wasn't necessarily the best portion of it, but it's a portion of it that I like because he says something there that I want to emphasize. The president of the United States made a decision to run weapons to Contras because he wanted to support him. He was an anti-communist. He was a raging anti-communist. So the socialist forces that were in I can't remember the exact country, but the socialist forces that were in that country, he was like, hey, these guys, there's a revolution brewing, and we're going to support the Contras in that country. Iran is still our enemy, but if they would give us money and we would give them weapons, we're okay with that. So we're going to sell arms to Iran. We're going to take the money from those arms sales and we're going to give to the Contras because we want those Contras to get rid of those socialists who are in power. That was Reagan. They were guilty of that. Now, Reagan was able to skate on this to some degree. So Reagan said, look, I'm a hands-off president. I delegate responsibilities. They knew I didn't like something, and so they went after doing and figuring this shit out. I didn't realize they went this far, though, but the buck stops with me. And they said, oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You're exchanging, you're our enemy, and you're giving them weapons, and you're taking money, and you're giving it to Contras. We as the public never said we were okay with that. You never even brought that up for a discussion. You just did that. You just did that. It was illegal. It went beyond our Constitution. If it's extra constitutional What is the president of the United States using to do this? What are these bodies? What are these entities? If people want to talk about a deep state, what are these entities that were within the administration itself using to justify their behavior in doing this? This seems pretty amazing to me. The public shrug. He's affable. He looks like my granddad. I showed the entirety of it because I want you to get across how it looked back then when people were looking at the news. Even the affable way in which he's talking about it. It's different. It's more sharp. It's changed. There were no consequences for that. That was illegal. Like, I'm trying to get across to you. That's the president of the United States saying something that's extremely affable. He's talking about how awesome all these people are and everything else. He's talking about something that is illegal. I was alive during this time. I remember this to some degree. In this corner of my memory, I remember this. I remember Reagan anyway. He skated. He skated. This was after it was done, of course. Now, we've had our recent events. So in this case, Reagan, okay, he says he's hands off. We can't necessarily prove that Reagan knew about it. Fair enough. But certainly what those guys doing was illegal. This was a massive scandal that was taking place. So let's go more recent. So in this case, Reagan was given money because he wanted a war to take place in South America over socialist governments. He didn't like those socialist governments. We wanted to exert control over the south of our border. In many cases, we did, putting in strongmen, a dictator, and everything else. And this was Reagan's case of doing this. So elements of the government said, you know what, next time we'll get permission. We'll get permission. They didn't like Reagan doing this off the books. We'll get permission. So in a case where they tried to foment a war, we need to get the Americans on our side when we come up with the situation and pretext for a war. Especially if we're going to use large amounts of weapons and money and materials and everything else. We want the American public on our side this time. We don't want to do this in the shadows. The legitimacy, according to Reagan, the power of the Oval Office rests in you, the American public, the democratic process, the representative government. The power of the office rests in you. That's the one thing Reagan said in that particular clip that was absolutely, completely, unapologetically, supposedly, at least from a philosophical basis, true. Take a look at this. This is somebody coming up with the pretext of a war. Reagan was trying to stir a war in another country. He's trying to stir a war in this country. And this is what he's using to do this. He's getting consent. He's manufacturing consent, and the media is helping him.
This file we have on Iraq's biological weapons is the existence of mobile production facilities used to make biological agents. Let me take you inside that intelligence file and share with you what we know from eyewitness accounts. We have first-hand descriptions of biological weapons factories on wheels and on rails. The trucks and train cars are easily moved and are designed to evade detection by inspectors. In a matter of months, they can produce a quantity of biological poison equal to the entire amount that Iraq claimed to have produced in the years prior to the Gulf War. Although Iraq's mobile production program began in the mid-1990s, UN inspectors at the time only had vague hints of such programs. Confirmation came later, in the year 2000. The source was an eyewitness, an Iraqi chemical engineer who supervised one of these facilities. He actually was present during biological agent production runs. He was also at the site when an accident occurred in 1998. 12 technicians died from exposure to biological agents.
When Colin Powell was set and pointed out to go and give that speech to the United Security Council of the United Nations, at one point he holds up a vial. He's like, this one. He's like, this right here, this shit right here. All of it was wrong. He was wrong. It was wrong. Maybe not all of it, but he was wrong. He was lying. He was coming up with the pretext of a war. The reason why they picked Colin Powell to do that is because all of them, none of them were trusted. None of them had the trust of the American population or even international population. Colin Powell was the one with the 80% approval rating. This is within my political awareness. I remember this. He was the guy that people trusted. And what he said there was a lie. Call it what it is. He lied. People want to say, oh, he was misinformed. He was pushed. I don't care. He's saying that he knew something that he did not know, and that is a lie. They used him as a useful idiot at best, as a useful idiot to create pretext of a war. And for people who are like, oh, dude, you're being too hard on them. We killed 1 million people. We killed 1 million people. If I err on the side of hardness and cynicism when dealing with these people, forgive me. 1 million people died. We're still in those countries today. We spent $7 trillion. How much money would it have taken to get rid of poverty all across the world? And we use that money in order to kill and maim and pillage. That's what we did. Call it what it is. Yes, I'm going to be hard on Colin Powell. I'm going to hard on all these people in this situation because of what we're talking about. We're talking about international politics. We get beyond this thing of us having these bumping into political people. This politics. This is not Paul Ryan and Obama in this case, or Paul Ryan or Nancy Pelosi and Trump. This is international politics. These guys have weapons. They use those weapons on other nations. They use those weapons on other nations. He lied there. It ended up into a war. That's a big fucking deal. In the first case, Reagan's lies were caught after the fact. Or at the very least, the presidency's lies were caught after the fact. In the second case, this case, he comes out in order to get the pretext of the American public, to get the consent of the American public before they go in and smash and destroy another country. What about this? Today we have this.
You argue that the source of this nerve agent, Novichok, is Russia. How did you manage to find it out so quickly? Does Britain possess samples of this?
People from Porton Down, the laboratory.
So they have the samples here.
They do, and they were absolutely categorical. I mean, I asked the guy myself. I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "There's no doubt." So.
It was categorical. I asked the guy. It was categorical. I asked him. He said, yeah, they got him. We absolutely know that they have these things. They're weapons of mass. Oh, wrong script. Yes, we absolutely know that they have these things and that these things belong to Russia. There are a few things here. First, it's funny that Britain is getting pissy at Russia for having a particular nerve agent when Britain itself says fuck all to the chemical ban. The United States and Britain says fuck all to that. But whatever. They can have it, other countries can't have it, and they get pissy when other countries have it, even though they themselves have it. The second part of this is him categorically knowing, I know this because they said so. The problem with this is, as has been widely publicized, is they didn't know. The Porton Down scientist says that's not true. The Porton Down scientist says we can't identify where it comes from. Yes, we believe it's Novichok. No, we don't know where it comes from. We have no idea what Gordon Brown is talking about. I'm sorry, what he's talking about. Look, that matters. That matters. The fact that one country or one person, one political leader after the next comes out and lies to the public matters. And in this case, you're not finding the lie out after the fact. You're finding the lie out before. He doesn't know. They have a narrative in the same way that the prior administration had narratives that they wanted to inflict. They have things that they want to do. What they tell you, however, is somewhat different, because if they told you what they wanted to do, you would be horrified by it and you would say no. They've generated a narrative. Russia did it. Russia did it. Russia did it. Same thing in the United States. Russia did it. In this case, Russia did it. Not just Russia did it. I have the experts telling me this, only to find out that the experts told him no such thing. This guy is number 2, as far as I understand it, to Theresa May, Foreign Secretary. And he's saying this stuff in this way. Do we have a democracy or not? Do we have a representative government or not? And I use the term representative government. I'm talking about Britain, America, all of these countries, all of these liberal democracies or social democracies, whatever you want to call yourself. The part of that that's operative is the democracy. Is it real or not? Which one is it? The president pretends that he's a king and the president has all of these duties and things that he does that is completely outside of the bounds of the Constitution. And they would still hold up the Constitution saying, we live under this particular document. It seems that one of us does not. It seems that several of us does not. Which one is it? The president was caught shipping weapons from one of our enemies, or using the money from the weapons that he was shipping to one of our enemies to pay Contras in another country to topple a government. Is that part of our Constitution? Is that legal? And if it's not legal, why wasn't there consequences? Same thing. Colin Powell pushes a war that administration knew was not right, that was not true. They lied to the American public. There was no consequences. They walked. Is it okay to invade another country based on the Constitution? And if they're not using the Constitution, what are they using to do these things? Same thing applies to British law. What are they using to do these things if they're not using the documents to which you guys organize yourselves around? Does the public have say or not? That's what I'm getting at. This guy lied through his teeth about what he was saying Russia did. Come on. Look, my point in this is, from the standpoint of the United States, if we're saying that the power of the presidency, the power of the prime minister, the power of any government lives within the people itself, which is the way it's supposed to go, that us, the human beings that make up a particular country, a particular government, ultimately have say-so over the laws. When that government is making laws, making powers, it's doing so at the behest of the American public or at the behest of the British public. You give up part of your rights of freedom, meaning I can't go and shoot somebody in the face. I can't go just randomly punch somebody in the face because I'm giving up some of my rights as a person in order to live under this particular framework. The people who are manipulating that framework, who are getting the money for the government itself, who are getting the powers accrued to them from the government themselves, that power is supposedly coming from you. That power is supposedly coming from me, from us. They're supposed to be constrained also by that same power. Meaning, if they're doing things that are going beyond the bounds of the Constitution, beyond the bounds of the laws of Britain, there should be consequences. The moment that you say there are no consequences for those things, you've essentially permitted them to behave any way they wanted to. The prime minister now becomes a king. The president becomes a king. Is that what you want? Do you live in a representative government or not? Yes or no? Boris Johnson is going out here, and Boris Johnson is selling something to your public that is not true. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Reagan was breaking the law flagrantly when Reagan was involved in the process of selling weapons. I understand. Oh, I didn't know. Ronald Reagan, I didn't know I was hands off. I just passed tax cuts. And yes, I did raise taxes, but I cut the tax rate to some ridiculous number, to like 20% from 70%. I'm just checked out of the presidency. But he did it. The office did it. Are there laws or not? Are presidents and prime ministers and people within those organizations bound by those laws or not? And the moment you say no, that the president, the prime minister, these people are kings and queens and they can do whatever they want, then they're going to behave as kings and queens and do whatever they want. And I would argue to you is that's exactly what is taking place. There was no consequence for Reagan. There was no consequence for Bush. There was no consequence for Blair. All of these people prosecuted wars, many of which were illegal wars, and there was no consequence for these things. Boris Johnson has just come out and accused a nuclear power of killing somebody or trying to kill somebody in Britain. The experts that he was quoting said he was wrong. The experts for the weapons of mass destruction and that Colin Powell was pushing was wrong. His testimony was a lie. In the same way that Gordon Brown, I don't know why I want to keep calling this man Gordon Brown, that Boris Johnson's testimony was a lie. You caught him before it went too far. Will there be consequences in Britain for him lying to the public in the way that he just lied to the public just to prosecute his position? And if there are no consequences, then can we honestly say there is rule of law, especially when it comes to people who are in authority? Prosecuting Boris Johnson is the thing that a democracy would do, that a republic would do. Prosecute is too strong. I just mean whatever the laws that it seems like he has been pushing or breaking or flagrantly going beyond in his lies about this. Those things need to be enacted and those things need to be forced and he needs to be investigated. He needs to be investigated. At the least, he needs to be investigated. He outright lied. He outright lied. And understand the consequences of that lie in the same way you understand the consequences from the context of 9/11 and what took place after 9/11, meaning this guy, Bush, Cheney, all of these guys, Blair, selling a war built on lies. Again, if I am a bit dramatic in regards to saying that this guy should be probed, they should look into what Boris Johnson has said and why he's been saying and the perspectives of the government and the things that the government wants to accomplish. If I seem a bit overblown on this, forgive me. I am a child of Saddam Hussein. I am a child of the Iraq generation. I grew up with us in other countries leveraging the bravery of American and British citizens killing Middle Easterners. I find it to be a big deal that a country that was involved in the biggest international fiasco, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, would be so willing to ignore the evidence and the experts and automatically blame another country and lie about it. And yeah, you should be a little bit hyperbolic in dealing with a government that's willing to push forth lies. Again, after the last biggest disaster that your country was also a part of. Boris Johnson should be probed. He lied. Call it what it is. He lied. Every news network should be saying he lied. Every news network should be looking for a probe. Everybody on the streets of Britain should be walking around saying, hey, you think they're going to probe Boris Johnson? Because that's exactly what took place. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Your government lied to you and got you into a war. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Boris Johnson is now saying that Russia killed somebody on their soil. He lied about the experts saying that it was Russia. He should be looked into. This one is not going to be wrong. This idea that they're letting this guy walk or letting this guy skate without saying anything to him or without probing him, at the very least, he lied to the British public in order to push an agenda. That's a failure, especially given what has taken place with the number of people that you guys murdered in that other country. Bush and man, Colin, Powell, Bush, Blair, Mueller, all should be locked up or at the very least forgotten and ignored completely, but no media should seem to forgive and forget. Shameful. Not just forgive and forget, they don't even bring it up. They don't even bring it up. The media was completely complicit in selling that war. Completely complicit. Now, what I'm asking here is the media also going to be this much of a useful idiot and complicit in allowing the British government to obfuscate from its problems with Brexit? You have the European Union talking about annexing Northern Ireland. Yeah, you're bringing this up to obfuscate. That's the point I'm getting at. They're bringing this up to obfuscate. So yeah, he should be probed. He should be investigated. Questions should be asked about Boris Johnson about why was he lying about this? Why were you saying something that's untrue? Why were you trying to get the public in Britain and this hysteria over Russia in the same way that it's in the United States? Why? All sorts of questions should be asked of Boris Johnson. He should not skate on this, not in the shadow of what Britain did in regards to assisting the United States with destroying the Middle East. I'm not going to keep this one long because I have somewhere to go. I'm just saying. May is on video doing the same. Yeah, she is. She's being more political about it. Let's say it that way. She's alluding to the experts without necessarily leaning on the experts. Boris Johnson outright said Russia did it. Outright said it. Not in the physical sense. No to Mosey Young. Not probe in the physical sense. I'm using Jeremy Corbyn's term probe. But I just mean he needs to be investigated for why. And if there is a law that he broke in doing so, that law needs to be prosecuted. Either you have those laws or not. Use them or not. I'm sick of these people in these positions of authority trying to lead the country in a particular direction based on lies. Doing it based on lies. So yeah, I'm not going to keep this long. Like I said, this one was going to be quick. I will see you guys this evening because I have something to do during the day. But you guys have a decent, awesome Friday. All right, guys. Have a good one.